Yeah, we are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a podcast channel where we talk to PropTech founders, CEOs from all over the world and learn from them how they build and manage successful PropTech companies. Today, I'm excited to have with me Abhishek, who has over the last few years, Abhishek is the founder of RentersaATHI and Propertywise, first of all. And over the last few years, he has experimented with a lot of PropTech businesses. He has dirties his hands and has gathered a lot of wisdom and knowledge and insights from Indian real estate industry. And I got to interact with him last time, and the conversation was getting so interesting. I said, "Let's hold on to this conversation. Let's move this conversation to a podcast episode so that others could also learn from this." So I'm very excited and eager to have this conversation with him. But before I go on to the conversation, all the audience who are listening to this, please hit that subscribe channel because when you subscribe, I reach to a more wider audience. So that's how it is. So with that, let's welcome Abhishek. Abhishek, welcome to PropTech Buzz. How are you doing today?
Hey Ravi, good morning. Must be early morning time. I'm good, thank you. Thanks for
Yes.
inviting me to the show. Pleasure to be on your show.
Same here, Abhishek. As I said, what I really like about you is you are somebody who has spent the last few years deeply understanding this business, this real estate industry, and experimented a few things, learned along the way. So it's a privilege, or it's an advantage for all the other people who might want to be getting into this industry, and they could learn from your hard earned lessons. So that's what
Sure, happy to share. Yeah.
we would like to do that. So let's get started. I know a bit about your career trajectory. Okay, let's begin from your journey where you transitioned from your job into your entrepreneurship gig, and why did you choose prop tech as the industry to get into entrepreneurship?
All right. So yeah, after having spent 15 plus years in the IT industry, so yeah, I was looking for more challenging opportunities. So I did some stints earlier also, took some sabbatical to explore something new. But uh, this time I was looking for a more challenging opportunity and working in corporate for so many years. So I think I had the patience and perseverance built in me to be able to start an entrepreneurship journey. So that's where the idea generated. I was in UK back in 2017-18 when I decided to come back to India and start something on my own. And yeah, as I think every entrepreneur would go through that journey of shortlisting a few ideas, validating the use cases, and then going ahead with one. So I also had a couple of ideas to start with, but I specifically chose prop tech, property management. One, because I was always fascinated with the real estate, and I had I had a few investments already in India when I was working. I had made a few investments, so I know uh, uh, my friends and in my network, people have invested in the properties. So the ground was already set. I had around 5 to 10 different properties in hand to start with, and moreover, I had experienced myself when I was outside India. So it was getting difficult to manage my properties. So I had given my keys to the broker, and then I always felt like that. I always that feeling: is my property maintained? Who is staying in my property? Is everything all right? So I had faced that difficulty in coordinating with someone on the ground who can manage my property, and real estate and property being the biggest asset in one's life. So yeah, that's where I thought of moving into prop tech because it was challenging and yeah, very inviting.
So your first experience was giving your property to a realtor to manage your property, and that's where you saw a big challenge, where you saw that there is opportunity to disrupt and add value.
That's
So
right.
what happened after that? So did you come back to India, and then you said, okay, let me also get into this industry, and why? Did you see a massive opportunity? Did you see a massive gap that you could solve?
Right. So I came back to India. I started with 5 properties, and so did validation of my thinking. So at that time, I think it was hardly a few companies who were into property management, hardly a few startups. So I was talking about 2018.
Hmm,
I'm talking about 2018. Nestaway was one of them, and I think Nestaway was the first one to start in India.
hmm,
Otherwise, you will see in USA, Australia, and Europe markets there are many property management companies.
right.
I mean, who work on a scale of 200 plus properties, and they have been operating for 15, 20 years, and it's employing 15, 20 people.
Right.
Uh, so so yeah, I mean, I started with 5 properties, and I've worked on the ground, understood the challenges, and slowly and steadily, then we moved on. And I mean, whatever the thinking was, I mean, the problem statement which I could see theoretically, when on the ground, I could see much more than that. So because it was the area which has got high potential, given that lot of investors. I mean, we are operating in Pune as of now. So Pune, and that too Pune in the IT hub, which is Hinjewadi, uh, which is the western part of Pune. And because me from the IT background, I know there are many people who are NRIs who who are working abroad for so many years, and who have the money to be deployed somewhere. And generally, I mean, most of the NRIs end up deploying money in the real estate, in the residential or a commercial estate. So
Right.
that's what, I thought there is a huge potential, and that's where we are.
So you said 5 properties. Those 5 properties were whose properties? They were your network, your friends, your customers.
A couple of my properties and couple of my friends' property we started with.
So what do you mean by your property? You are managing your own
I
property.
had invested. I invested myself, so I own those properties.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm talking about the business. So you said that you
Yeah. So
wanted you
we
got into property management by managing your own property. That would not be
Yeah, so but yeah, I mean, it's about you are not but the process remains the same, right? Converting. So what we started with is a co-living concept, wherein
okay.
in order what we realized was, in order to maximize the rental income, so instead of giving a full house to a group of bachelors, or to a family, so in order to maximize the rentals, so you go by per bed basis. So in a 2 bedroom apartment, so you have 4 beds, and then you get rent out on a per bed basis. So that's where
Ah,
you can maximize. So that's where I converted my properties into that model. So we
got it.
furnished the apartment to a set standard,
Got it.
and that's where we started maximizing the rent, and it went well, very well.
Got it. So okay. Now you're transitioning from property management to co-living. So did you do a mix of property management and co-living, or you began with co-living?
No, it's yeah, we began with co-living, but eventually we moved into property management.
Got it.
And co-living also, we co-living can be, two different things. One is you lease out an entire building,
Right.
uh, uh, with a 50 bed or 100 bed, more than 100 beds, and then you
Right.
achieve economies of scale, you deploy a caretaker.
Right.
uh, but we started with apartments,
Got
individual units, because there is a difference. When you are managing an apartment, you don't need to deploy a full-time resource as a caretaker
Got it. Got it. So you had scattered apartments, and those
across
scattered
the
apart
societies there.
scattered apartments were converted into co-living. Okay.
Yeah, that's right there.
My question to you is, so what did you learn? First of all, are residential apartments open for co-living setup without like individual families or stuff like that? Because the reason why I see, other than economies of scale, is also that there is this one building and then multiple people living, primarily bachelors maybe, or first time professionals or students, and then they are they are away from a residential apartment,
Right.
because they're all clustered in one place. What is the reception, what is the perception of people or families who live in the same apartments, and then there are few apartments which are co-living?
See, there is always a resistance from the families and the societies.
Got
I mean, even you see in Pune, some societies like they would mention it on a board at the front gate that no bachelors allowed.
it.
But again, that's a discrimination. But legally, it's not right. But yeah, so there is a resistance that we see. But there are so many investors flats, so one cannot stop bachelors to move in, and you will not get always the families or something. So the demand is such that apartments are bound to be occupied by bachelors, so it's a market driven thing.
Got it.
And yeah, as long as there is no noise or disturbance or nuisance created by the renters,
Right.
so societies are okay. And we are seeing primarily in Pune, the large housing complexes, wherein the residents profile is all are educated people. So I mean, mostly are from professional backgrounds, so they intermingle very well. So
Got
we
it.
have seen cases like where bachelors are, there have been police cases as well, there have been complaints, official complaints. But there are many societies that we see they amicably,
Live.
bachelors live in the society, and then it's up to us as an operator to create an environment and to put the guidelines in place, so that we don't end up in that scenario wherein we are also ashamed of renting to someone who created a nuisance in the society.
Got it. Yeah, nuisance can be created from families also. I've
Yeah,
seen
absolutely,
so many
absolutely.
videos go viral where your dog bit neighbor, or you have been really, really. So it's about humans, and
Humans, yeah, exactly.
discriminations because you're not married or you do not have a family is unfair. Anyways, so let's. So did you build a brand, or were you experimenting without a brand, like just giving your apartment and making it multi-bed?
No, we started this name RentersaATHI,
Okay.
which which was which came in after a lot of deliberation and a lot of thoughts. So I literally remember writing on the piece of paper, asking my family and friends on suggesting me a name, and then finally, I was trying to visualize and trying to lay down the foundation what the company will look like. And after a lot of deliberations, we came up with this name and this logo. So we took, pandemic time was very it was good for us in a way that we had time to reflect on what we have done in the last year. And so yeah, we took this an opportunity to design our logos and then lay down the foundation and core values of the company. So yeah, we started with the name RentersaATHI, but eventually the design and the logo and the core values, principles, mission, vision evolved.
Okay. So how many beds did you start with?
So we start with, so it was 5 apartments. On an average, there were 4 beds. So we start with around 20 beds. And
And
then,
all the five apartments were owned by you, or
no, it was owned by friends in the network from a reference,
you got it?
because it was just a start. So yeah,
Got it.
in fact, we got our first client when I was in the UK. So there was a colleague of mine who was, like, oh, you are going back to Pune, you're starting your own business. My house has been vacant for so long. So, why don't you take my keys and then, rent it out? Because
Got it.
people are generally apprehensive on handing the keys to someone who they don't know.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah.
So this is interesting, and I would like to know the difference between property management and co-living. Would you also call this as property management because you are owning, or you are becoming the custodian of their property, and you're converting that property into co-living? Is there an overlap between property management of their property also, or how would you call it?
Yeah, I mean, property management is a generic term. Like, you are the custodian, you are the caretaker,
Right.
or you're the manager of someone's property. And then, based on their tenant preferences, I mean,
Got it.
some landlords are like, no, we don't want to rent out to bachelors, or we don't want to turn it into a commercial place or a
Got it.
co-living place. But
Got it.
some landlords are like, as long as you think you can manage it and you can maximize our rental income, that's okay. So property management can encompass a different set of renters profile, be it a co-living shared economy concept or a full house concept.
Got it. Got it. What are the laws in India now where you are renting your apartment to either one person or an operator who is an intermediary managing that apartment? Are there any distinct laws that differentiate that it is a commercial property now? Uh, could you shed some light?
Uh, you
Like
mean
tax,
commercial?
like tax, like the thing is, there are apartments and the owners, and they give it to tenants. But now with
Mhm.
operators coming in, does it make the entire business of letting out apartments as a commercial entity, and
Yes.
does that the taxes that you make
Mhm.
money from the apartment is different? Could you shed some light on the laws, or it is nobody has got into this in terms of
Sure.
legal?
So I think recently the goods and services tax (GST). I
Hmm.
mean, there has been guideline in the GST that earlier residential apartments were exempt from GST,
Hmm.
uh, totally exempt from GST because residence and living shelter is a basic need, so you
Hmm.
cannot charge GST on the basic needs. But I think it's now the last year only, and I'm still to understand that thoroughly because we are not operating at a building level. So we have not gotten to the details, but
Okay.
I'm sure this implication now impacts all the operators, co-living operators, those who are independently running and as a commercial entity.
But you
But
do.
if you compare in terms of, sorry, but just a difference here. So, I mean, leasing out the entire building and operating becomes a commercial activity, which, in my understanding, comes under the remit of GST now. But if you are operating an apartment, like managing an apartment, so it will not fall under GST remit as long as you are not subleasing the apartment from the landlord and further subleasing it. So the way I can explain what we do is we don't lease out the residential premises from the landlord. So we get into a services agreement with the landlord. So there is a detailed services agreement which delineates the responsibilities between landlords and the tenants and the property managers. So we get into a services agreement. Landlords and our company signs the agreement. We become the caretaker, and then the actual rent agreement or a lease contract that happens between tenant and the landlord. So
Between
that
the tenant
way,
and the landlord. Okay.
yeah, it's directly between the end user and the landlord. So there is no commercialization here.
Okay, but the tenant agreement, then the thing usually co-living is the length of the duration of the stay is usually short than somebody a family lives, right? So they could leave within 6 months. Sometimes they could leave within 3 months and stuff like that. So do you create rental agreements again and again for people
Yes,
coming
yes,
in
we
and
do
okay.
because that's a compliance, and it will create a lot of problem, and that's the first and foremost thing that we do. You need to be compliant with the rent agreement. Even nowadays, societies are just so stringent, having these society management softwares in place like Adda, MyGate, etc., etc. So the process has been digitalized, and you can't get away with not having an agreement. I mean, you'll get reminders from the society, and society will make sure that every tenant has an agreement before they issue the resident pass to them. So yeah, we do agreements every time, but we do prefer tenants who are going to stay at least for 6 months.
Okay. So that is good. But why would you? What is your agreement with the landlord as an operator? My question. The reason is, if you do not have a lease, then you never know how long will the landlord be willing to give his business to you, right? So apartment to you. So you do not know whether you can run this for the next 2 years or not. So is there any kind of agreement in terms of the number of years that you will be running?
No, generally we sign the agreement and we say it's 1 month notice from either the parties if somebody wants to get out of the contract. So, but you can't anyway lock in and force a landlord to be in a contract. So if they don't like your services, anyway they will quit. Uh, so
But
we don't keep any fixed criteria. If you are operating a building or a large complex, then obviously you need to have a
lease agreement.
fixed set of years lease agreement, maybe for 5 years, because you are putting capex on that. You are refurbishing the property, etc. But
Hmm.
in case of apartments, we don't uh, bind our landlords to get into a forced agreement. So we
Okay.
keep it open. If they like our services, that's fine. If they don't like our services, there is an exit clause, and we can trigger that clause anytime.
But I'm asking to you as an operator, would you not want it, or What works in your favor? Like, would you want to have it leased, or it is easy to have this simple agreement
No,
structure?
leased would mean that lease may mean that you are giving a fixed rent, which is not viable. Uh, and if you are paying a fixed rent to a landlord, then the
Uh-huh.
property has to be very carefully selected and various and it should meet various criteria. And that's where this co-living model may not be that profitable, because everyone is like, after growing numbers, okay, we are now 10,000 beds, we are 50,000 beds, but next year will be 100,000 beds, all these operators. But I think I have seen them leasing out any other property, because they are just after numbers. But when we did an assessment, so there have been scenarios wherein there is a property in standalone building, on which landlord is inviting quotations and bidding from various operators. So we have competed with other major operators in the market who are highly funded. So but I myself have seen that the due diligence and the numbers that we arrive at, I mean, we say that no, this property cannot be profitable. But we see that other operators taking that property and paying higher rent to the landlords.
Okay. So I get that. So what you're saying is, then what's your term? What are your terms for your landlord? So you are saying it is not fixed income. You're not committing them. So
We are not paying fixed rent.
are you doing revenue sharing based on occupancy?
So generally, revenue sharing also owners don't want to do, because they don't have an appetite for risk, in revenue
Hmm.
sharing. And so generally, our model is simple, that we charge around 8 to 12% of the service fee from the monthly rent, which is an
Mhm.
industry benchmark. You go anywhere in the world, any property management company would fall under this numbers. So that's what we do. We charge a monthly service fee from the landlords only when the property starts generating the rent. If a property is vacant, then we don't charge anything.
If the property is vacant, you don't charge anything. Okay, so
Yeah.
that is good. Then that means you are not suffering losses. Okay, and you are happy with that 8 to 12% range.
Right. And even we have seen many landlords who are not, who may not want to get into this fixed service fee every month, because they think that once the tenant has moved in, or for example, a family has moved in, and you think that they're going to stay for 2 years, you think that why a property manager is required? Why do I pay them every month?
Right,
So some owners are, they resist this concept.
right.
To them, we are open to give on-demand services or one-time services. So we don't let our customers go. If they don't want to come into our property management services model, then there are on-demand services that we offer to our landlords.
Very, very interesting. So help me understand. Okay, so you told about your operating model. How are the big players, property management companies? How are they getting thousands of properties if the landlords are resisting to give 10% or 8% or 12% of the rental income every month? Like, I have asked this question to few other people, and they said that, oh, this is like insurance. Yes, there is no need, because I have a rent or a tenant locked in for the next 2 years. But hey, what if there is a big problem, there is an issue, there's a fight, or there is some kind of a breakdown in
Mhm.
the relationship. So
Yeah.
this is like insurance they need to pay, but not everybody is sensitive to pay 10% of
Right.
the rental. How are they able to manage this? How are they getting so many customers willing to pay 10% of the rental?
So I think if you segment the customer base, then there are a set of customers. Uh, they are those set of customers which these companies are able to target. So mostly these are NRIs or busy working professionals who
Hmm.
are, maybe they are located in the same city, but they understand the meaning of a professional services. They appreciate the professional services. So they
Hmm.
themselves are in the professional services, so they understand and appreciate, and that's why they are okay to pay that service fee component,
Mm,
on a monthly rent. And of course, it's, as you said rightly, it's kind of insurance. If anything goes wrong, then
mm,
they don't have to run here and there. And the data says that uh, it's like on an average you will get at least one ticket uh, per month from a renter,
mm,
be it a tap leak, be it electrical issue, be it some other issue or
right,
clarification. So owners wouldn't have time to communicate with the renters and answer their queries, etc.
right,
So that's where they end up doing that. But there are different segment of customers
right,
who don't appreciate the professional services, and who
right.
think that okay, once in a while we can make a trip to the apartment, we can check what's is the apartment all okay. so
Got
so
it.
they but we are happy to, we have been supporting all different kind of customer segments. And we have seen the customers who have started with our on demand services, and then eventually during the life cycle after 1 or 2 years, and they realize the importance of property management services, and then they shift to our property management services
So
model.
this is also about awareness, because India is still catching up to the concept of property management, and then there will come a point of time where giving away 10% for the peace of mind will become a
Yeah,
norm. People will not be
exactly.
anymore being too price conscious about it, and they will be happy eventually when it becomes a standard to give
Yeah,
away.
yeah, that times will come, absolutely. Because if you see in the other market, rest of other than India, developed countries. So I
Hmm,
mean, people don't manage their property on their own. Hardly you will see any landlords managing property on their own.
got it. Okay, excellent. Did you also not mention that other than these five properties, you experimented with a complete building somewhere
Yeah.
last time? Do you want to shed some light there?
Yeah. So yeah, it was an interesting experience. So we were scouting for a building in Hinjewadi area, which is the IT city of Pune, IT
Okay.
hub of Pune. So yeah, I mean uh, rents were so high. I mean 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 5 lakh rupees per month. So I mean we didn't have the capacity to pay such higher rents. So I wanted to experiment with a smaller property, because the scale could be small, but when you do that property, you will understand, you will go through the process anyway, and then you will perhaps operate bigger property in future. So that's where we it took a lot of time to first to find a building which fits in our budget. So eventually we did find a building, but obviously there was a compromise. That building was not located on the main road. That was kind of a it was within the main area, but it was surrounded by agricultural land. It was not main road facing. But then we saw the property and rents were decent, and we spoke to the landlord, and then we started visualizing the property. I mean, in this busy lives, where people are busy, so we are getting a property just half a kilometer away from the main road, wherein there is complete silence, no noise, surrounded by agricultural land. And there were some challenges, like road was not good, the approach road. And obviously if it's agricultural land, you will also see snakes coming out in the monsoons, etc. So we understood all those challenges, and we then took it as a challenge to refurbish that property. And then we basically visualize the property, in their busy lives, IT professional. It's only, we are talking about 50 beds in a IT hub where 2 lakh 3 lakhs professionals are working. I mean, it's not that difficult to find 50 people who will enjoy living in this property. And that's what we did. I mean, we did that, and then within 3 months, it was houseful. And then we had a
Seriously?
register maintained in the, yeah, we had the register maintained in the property, wherein, oh, do you have a place here? I heard about this property. Then there were reviews
How
on
did
the internet, etc.
Okay, let me. How did you promote this? How did you get the word out about this property?
We started with digital marketing, posting on social media, and also did some offline marketing, because this property was is not too far from the IT companies. So we used to go outside during lunchtime, stand in front of the companies, where people used to come out for tea, snacks, etc. So we used to talk to them, we used to give them pamphlet, etc. And then it's the word of mouth that spread, because once the tenants came in our property, and then they saw that what tenants look for is in a hostel is hygiene, and the food. Basically, these two things, if you can cater to their needs, I mean, they don't need fancy furniture or
Mm.
anything, but it's the basic thing. Bathrooms should be clean. So I think we were able to do that,
So, so,
and
so did
yeah.
you sign a lease with the property owner?
Yes, for 5 years we signed a lease with a lock-in clause of 3 years because we were going to put capex in that. So it was a lock-in for 3 years, but the lease was for 5 years.
What's the difference between lock-in period and lease period?
So lock-in is generally you will not be able to vacate before 3 years.
Hmm.
You are in kind of a lock-in arrangement, and neither the landlord will be able to make you vacate the premises.
But is
And
that not lease? But I thought that is what lease is. No, lease is what's the difference?
I mean, it's different clauses. Lease, so lease is also driven. So you can always put an exit clause in the lease
Ah,
saying that
okay.
if these terms are not met, if the operator does not pay rent on time, then
Hmm.
and he's not managing my property, or if there is any other issue arising out of his operations,
Okay, you
then
can.
in fact, if you are in lease also, then there is a clause. Then
Mhm.
landlord can make you vacate the property.
Okay, so lock-in is more tighter, so you cannot break the lock-in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that is for 3 years. Okay, and then what was the status of that building when you acquired it? Was it empty rooms, or did it have any furnishing, or how was it?
It had some, it was had some furniture, but we reused hardly 20-30% of the furniture because all the rest of the furniture was not up to the mark at all, and it
Mm-hmm.
was beyond repair. And there were, I think, 25 rooms, around 25 rooms, and there were around 5 to 7 people living in that society, and landlord had kept a caretaker who has been managing that property for last so many years.
Right.
And yeah, so that was the state of the property.
Okay, and then what was, so you said you visualized it. What was the expectation you were setting for new tenants? What were you offering? You said clean bathrooms. What else did you invest, and what was your capex cost like?
Right. So capex cost was around maybe 15-20 lakhs Indian rupees, somewhere between that. So we installed a CCTV camera. So whatever the basic things we thought were useful. So we had beds procured from a manufacturing unit because 50 is also a decent number. So 50 beds, 50 mattresses, 50 table chairs. So and then we also set up a small kitchen, and we tried with different concepts. We had a cook also, and then we left the kitchen open for the renters to self cook also.
Hmm.
So in that property we did a lot of experiments, and uh, our team was also working from that property. So we had occupied a room as our back office, and we were operating that property. We operated in that property for around 3 years before moving our office to a high footfall, high visibility area on a high street.
Okay, and yeah, so help us know about the success of that. You said it got fully accommodated within 3 months, and then
Yeah.
how did it go? Was it a success? Were you getting the rental yield as expected? Did you get back your capex money? Your how was it?
Yeah. So we were able to. There was very fast recovery. We were able to break even. I think within a matter of 18 months or something, we were able
Mm.
to break even. And then yeah, it was all going well, and we were profitably operating that property until the pandemic came in, and that
Okay,
that changed the scenario entirely.
got it. And you, because it was a lock-in period, you had to pay the rentals to the landlord for 3 years, or how was it?
No, we then again, it was an interesting discussion we had with rental. So we were able to convince the landlord to reduce the rents, and he was kind enough to reduce the rent. And after the pandemic came in, all these contracts, etc., people realized that there is a clause. I'm forgetting the name. What do you call that? So in case of any natural calamity or something, so
Got
that's
it.
a standard clause that has to be there in the agreement, but that was not there so
Okay,
clearly in our agreement.
got
but
it.
but yeah, our landlord was kind enough to reduce the rentals.
And if pandemic would not have hit, do you think things would have been different? Would you be continuing it profitably?
Yeah, if I think pandemic wouldn't have hit, then probably we would have continued with this property, and
Mm.
based on the success from this property,
Mm.
we would have ventured out into leasing out other buildings in the nearby areas.
Got it. You would have replicated the story. Maybe you would have raised
Yeah,
some funds to scale and stuff like that.
right.
Oh, excellent. And now that the pandemic has subsided, what's your plan with co-living?
See, you can't do everything together. So co-living has been a nice experience, and there is a huge potential in co-living.
Mm.
But we are not venturing out into co-living on a building or a standalone building scale, uh, uh, because it's a different game altogether. As I said, I mean, it depends. You have to be very specific and careful in selecting a building you are leasing out, and you have to be very selective on the model you are operating with the landlord. So it's a revenue sharing, it's a fixed rent, and you have to be very careful about the capex you are going to put in that co-living space, because I've seen many companies shutting down, like Oyo Life. Oyo also started with the concept of PG because it became very popular. People also call it PG, paying guest accommodation, in India. So it's a PG or a hostel or a student housing. So yeah, I've seen, many companies, highly funded companies, trying out this model and failing. So
Failing.
there
So
are other.
so help me understand, because there are still people who, they say, like one of my previous guests on my podcast said, co-living is only 2.5% of the market. There is still massive market opportunity out there. Okay. So even though we hear about co-living, everybody is getting into co-living, but only the market capture has happened below 3%. So there is massive opportunity. But in spite of that, you are saying that if you are not good with unit economics, if you are not good with how much is the capex investment, how much is the rental yield, location, the business could still fail. Could you shed some more light on why you decided that you do not want to get into co-living, and what are the things one should be careful about?
Right. So I think capex comes into play here. So again, as I said, I mean, it's the type of operating model that you are going to get into, and you have to be very, very mindful of the capex you are putting in. And again, if you want to scale, you have to be very selective in terms of the property you are acquiring.
Mm,
And it's not that nobody can break this model. Many companies, I'm sure, there are many companies who are working on this concept in India, and it's a huge market.
mm,
So I would say it's a smart combination of tech and processes that has to be
mm,
in place. So
mm,
tech enablement is also needed, and it's tech processes and expertise is also needed. I mean, you can't go blindly to grow your numbers, go on acquiring spree, and then acquire so many properties around, and
mm,
you may fail. For example, I mean, what based on our experience, I'm sure, I mean, all these companies who have already running so many beds, so they would have a standard checklist or processes in place. Whenever they, they are identified a building and they want to lease it out, I'm sure they would be running detailed inspections. If they are
mm,
detailed checks whether that property meets their criteria or not. If they're not doing, then I mean, I don't know if they will be successful or not.
mm,
For example, not only the location and look and feel of the building, you will have to understand the water supply there,
mm,
because we have seen operators who don't bother to ask this question to the landlord, from where is the water supply coming, and then they end up paying to water tankers for their, operational, that adds to their operational cost. And
mm.
then there are other factors, like, is there a power cut, frequent power cut in that area.
Got it.
So you have to go to the, and real estate is such a localized thing that you
Phenomenon. Yeah.
literally, in any city, any locality you go, you need to understand the dynamics around that, in that neighborhood and in that
Mm.
locality, in order to operate successfully.
Got it. Okay. So it's not about getting a empty building and just starting, just because you got a few apartments in one cluster, you just cannot go and change it. It has to
Yeah, and
be.
a lot of things, like, what is the construction quality? I mean, okay, building looks all good, but
Mm,
within a year you will see, paints falling off, and then
mm,
seepage issues you will see all around. And
mm,
then, the place will not be habitable. You will not be able to get renters in the property unless
mm,
you fix all those issues, and fixing all those issues may cost you a fortune, and
mm.
landlord may not be willing to, spend money on that. And landlords generally wouldn't spend money on that. They say
Would be
that,
spending.
okay, we have given you building in this condition, now you operate. And when you
Mm.
return the building, we want the building in the same condition.
So it's not as easy as it seems
So,
on face value.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of my previous guests also mentioned that he said this is an lower barrier to entry, but higher to scale, higher barrier to scale. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
you can always operate 20, 30 beds, but if you want from 20 to 100 beds, then it is really really not very very hard.
Right. But we have
Even
seen, the families who are operating one building, who are living there, who are providing food services by self cooking. So that is a successful model. So
mm,
you
but
don't hire any staff, you yourself are managing, and
yeah, yeah.
it's a very successful model. They are very
But,
profitable. So
yeah, but that is mom and pop. That means
yeah,
they're not doing it as a company. They're not doing it as a
yeah,
brand.
yeah.
But eventually, for the end user, they don't want to go into a company. What they want is whether it is an individual mom and pop store or a company. Eventually, what it matters is what is their experience. If a mom and pop store is offering them really good service, why should they not consider it? Why should they go to Stanza Living, or why should they go to some of these bigger names if a landlord of that person of that building is able to offer them very good services?
Right, and generally, mom and pops, they will offer reasonable rentals
Yeah.
and services, and then one has to see their pockets also, especially millennials and zillennials. So they have to look at their pockets. If they go to Stanza Living or any other branded
Mm.
accommodation,
Mm.
the rentals are high,
The rates are
and
high.
not everyone has the capacity to pay that. But it's like millennials get attracted to a branded accommodation because there is a
Mm.
culture, there is a community
Community. Yeah.
that they set up, and everyone is targeting millennials only. Create a
Mm.
culture, have parties, have some music, and have
Mm.
this table tennis or pool or
Mm.
snooker, etc. In the premises.
But numbers, when it is funded, you can give all of that, but if the unit economics is not right, even they will suffer. They might not be able to sustain because they are giving a
Yeah,
lot.
unit economics is very important, very, very important. I mean, every property or every building that you are operating at should generate some revenue, should be profitable.
Mm.
Otherwise, you may fail. That's what I've learned.
So you said your break even was 18 months, which is way too high in comparison to like I had Who Live, Chinmay Mishra, founder of Who Live, who is running student accommodation. He said if his calculation will not bear break even within 4 months, he's not going to contract the building. So for him, the break even should be 4 months, is what he said. That's a good guideline.
Maybe
Um,
they didn't invest in capex, because if you are investing in furniture, if you are
uh,
painting the entire building, and if you are doing other things, setting up a kitchen, etc., then I don't know, I mean, 4 months seems very difficult. But if you are not putting capex in, then you may break even. I mean, then you may be even profitable. If you are a purely service based company, then you may be profitable
I think
starting
he,
the start.
I think he mentioned capex. Maybe I'll to look back into the interview. Maybe ask him. But he did mention some capex in terms of bed and stuff like that. Which
Yeah, maybe they have achieved efficiencies now, because that was our
efficiencies.
first building to
Ah,
operate.
got it. Yeah, yeah. They are managing around 3,000 beds. Okay, good.
And
Yeah.
sorry, just to add on this point, and if you do some maths here, and if you see, I mean, if your break-even point says 18 months, and then with inflation also your rentals will increase, and once you achieve the efficiencies, then the profits will be huge in third and fourth year or fifth year, subsequent years.
Okay.
So
Yes.
it's like if you plot on a curve, it will be, you will go up and up if you
So
continue to operate in the same property, because
in
you have
this
already
case,
set up that property.
but what else other than break even? So after break even, obviously it will be smooth. But are there any other factors which will make it even more profitable?
Yeah, I mean, because you have already set up the property, all the
Okay,
one
okay. So the
time
initial cost.
capex, etc., initial cost has gone in, and then you are kind of
Occupancy rate.
stable in that neighborhood. So you have a word of mouth, you are provided,
Okay.
people know that property.
So your
So
occupancy rate would go up. Okay. Instead of in the past where your occupancy rate would be low because nobody knows. But now that everybody knows, there is a waiting list or something of that sort, so the occupancy rate is
Yeah,
high.
if you are maintaining the standards, quality standards, I
Quality
mean,
standard. There is
yeah,
also the depreciation cost of the capex, the furniture and stuff like that, because that is also wear and tear is also there.
yeah,
And then if you have raised money, then there is a cost to capital also. So all that also takes
right.
into. Okay, good. So what you are saying is you have learned the lessons and you do not want to operate an entire building, but you are going on a scattered portfolio.
Yeah, it's not that we don't want to operate. Again, it depends on, as a company we can't do everything all together.
Hmm.
But yeah, we have had experience of running a small property.
Hmm.
But eventually in future, depending on the funding and depending on how we establish ourselves in the market, so we may run a select properties in the areas where we are operating. So it may not be a model by itself, but for example, if we are operating in one area, and we are very much familiar about that area, so we might lease out a building. uh,
Hmm.
but this is not a concept that we want to scale on. So we want to scale on property management concept. uh, yeah, which is about managing the property and doing rental management, renting the apartments, and all the ancillary services related to that, which is rent agreements. Maintenance and repairs is a very critical component.
So you are merging both co-living and rentals and property management together. Okay. So what you are saying is a scattered. You go and look at an NRI, for example, and you tell him, okay, we will manage your property. We could give you high rental yields if we convert your property into co-living. Instead of one family, we can give it to four or five families, and you will convince the landlord to invest in the capex, or is it something that you are building the beds and you're getting the facilities or everything? How are you doing with the interiors? Is this something that you're taking help also from the landlord?
Yeah, so one thing is very clear. We are not investing in capex. I mean, so we let the landlord know. So there are different kind of renters profile and different rents that will be generated from each of the rental profile. Here are the pros and cons, etc., etc. And then we let landlord make the decision. And now, I mean, landlords themselves, they, because of, thanks to internet, everyone has the information accessible and everyone can read about, and there is a lot of awareness that has been generated in the last 3 years. So we don't force any landlord, but we are not investing in any capex.
Okay, so you are just an operator, which is a very smart move. No, you can be profitable and you can be lean. So
Yeah.
you are okay. So you are asking them. You are saying that okay, if you invest a lot on capex, you will get high on rental. It's like a furnished apartment will always give you more rentals than a
Yeah, and many
non-furnished.
owners does that. Many owners does that. They, okay, a lakh or 2 lakh. Okay, spend in that. Okay, I'll get so much of rentals, and then they do their own maths, and then they said, okay, I'm okay with that. Go ahead
Mm,
and buy me a refrigerator, buy me a air conditioner, or buy me some beds, etc. And then we do that on their behalf.
got it. And but do you intend to have your website listing all the managed properties so that if anybody wants to find about a property which is co-living with all the amenities inside, with all the furniture inside, will they be able to go to the website and see, okay, this is under the brand RentersaATHI, there are 20 properties in this locality or something of that sort? Or
Right.
how
So
do you?
eventually we would want to do that. Obviously, we have a website as of now. It's not up to date that much,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
eventually we are going to list that. But other than that, we are also going to list in all the other possible platforms and especially social media. For example, Nestaway started with this, listing platform. So they had exclusive properties. So Nestaway properties you will only find on the Nestaway portal, so they will not be listed anywhere else. So they had their marketplace on their own. The properties they are managing, they used to list on their website. But over a period of time, what we saw is, they also started listing in other portals like Magic Bricks, and we have seen that evolving, the things evolving, wherein post pandemic all these portals like Magic Bricks, Housing.com, No Broker, 99 Acres. So they realize that PG is a different segment altogether. So that's where they brought the category of having buy, sell, rent, and they also brought this category of PG in their
Mm.
portal. So
So
wherein all the rest of the operators also started listing their properties.
got it. So you mentioned about the disinclination of some landlords on giving you monthly 10 to 12% of the rentals to a property manager if they already have a dedicated tenant fixed for 2 years. But if you have converted that apartment into co-living where at least four people are living, it's a lot of headache for the
Yeah.
landlord to manage it. So it is, if it is converted into co-living, they're more likely to have the property manager manage it, because there is people going off. Even if it is 6 months lock-in, you still need to make rent agreements and stuff like that, and four people living, more maintenance. So, and then because of the high rental yield, they will be able to afford that 10% to a property manager. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
got it. Okay, so it's helpful to go and talk to a landlord and ask them to, okay, if we manage your property, would you be okay if we rent it out to bachelors? And
Yeah, and if they don't want to go with the property management services model, then obviously there is an onboarding fee or tenant finding fee that will charge, and will recover our uh, efforts and the money either from the landlords or the renters.
got it. I was also talking to the founder of Your Own Room. He was saying that yes, his business model, they are not making money on a property management fee 10%, because he says that that is very less. They are making money on onboarding. That means if they have to repair the entire apartment or completely paint it or renovate it because a new tenant can live there, that is where they make a lot of money, because
Okay, so onboarding as a terminology, we call onboarding as onboarding it's like onboarding a tenant or onboarding a property. Onboarding a property would mean that you are checking the property, inspecting the property, that it
yes,
meets your set standards criteria, and if there is a missing thing like painting needs to be done repair, then you do that. But yeah, onboarding a renter will be different thing, like you go through the rent agreement process, and
yeah,
then
yeah. So do you also do
background
onboarding of the
checks.
property, not just renters, but onboarding of the property? That means
Yeah,
is the
yeah, we
property.
do that. We
Okay.
do that, and it's a interesting area to be in, because that any property management operator or a company can either have a in-house talent to do maintenance and repairs, or mostly what we have seen is the property manager companies, they outsource to different vendors.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mostly they
so I
outsource.
mean, yeah, we are not achieved that large scale. We are not operating on that large scale as of now. But as of now, we have been doing. I have the in-house team, and we do the maintenance repairs by ourselves. Only the specialized maintenance repairs needing someone's specialization,
Hmm.
then we call a vendor. But otherwise, this is also very profitable stream.
Yeah, yeah. If you
You
are
know.
not putting any capex, then if you have enough portfolio, then the 10 to 12% rentals is a good model. Is how I would see it, isn't it?
Right, even maintenance and repairs is a good revenue generation stream. And
Maintenance and repairs. Okay, so if you are doing
yeah,
maintenance repairs and if you are giving to a vendor, then you would make a cut on a, because you're the provider or you are being the intermediator. You make a cut on the commissions. Am I right? Or
I
are
mean,
you
yeah,
doing?
you make a cut or you say that it's covered under the property management services. But
Okay,
what we are doing is essentially in the areas, in the nearby areas we are operating at. So I have a highly skilled team of, cross-functional team of electrician, plumber, and carpenter.
got it.
So we and a painter. So we have an in-house team, and we do the repair and maintenance ourselves,
Got it.
because it's very difficult to I mean, you need to have very professional vendors around you
Right.
uh, uh, in order to do that. And moreover, I mean, there is another aspect to it. I mean, if you think, if you give the maintenance and repair to someone else, and so that's the main thing, that's the basic thing which a renter would want. I
Right.
mean, and then when you are say there is a complaint from somewhere, and something needs to be fixed. So imagine a scenario wherein a person from your team wearing your t-shirt or representing you as a brand ambassador is going into the apartment and speaking to the renters and fixing the problem versus a vendor who will just go and fix and there will be no communication. So
Hmm.
whenever team goes into the apartments, so then they also talk
Represent
to the
your
renters about
brand.
any other issues they are facing, etc. So it's not only a technician which is going into the apartment, it's kind of a caretaker or a manager or a brand ambassador that is going into the apartment. And again, that communication channel is very important with the
So how do you
renters.
manage it? Because you're talking you're talking about people here. So you train your team to be as professional as possible. You said that you are not outsourcing it to any vendor as of now, okay? Because you are able to do it.
Only specialized tasks we outsource, and routine tasks like plumbing, electrician, routine tasks we are able to do on our own.
Got it. And that is your bigger source of margin, other than the property management fee.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
So there is a ten
eight age
percent
wise.
there is a 10% fee or 8% fee, whatever it is, for property management, and then you bill for the services, right?
Yeah, and repair and maintenance. I mean, you operating costs, operating margins could be as high as 30 to 40 to 50%.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Good. What? So you have two entities. You have Propertywise and RentersaATHI. Do you want to
Yeah. Sure.
differentiate between them?
Yeah, so Renter Sati is on a mission to simplify the renting journey,
Hmm.
because we call it a journey. So it's not easy moving from one city to another, moving into a new apartment. And then
Hmm.
on an average, I think you'll see a person will end up renting 10 to 12 times in his lifetime.
Hmm.
So we call it a journey. So Renter Sati, we are on a mission to simplify the renting journey, the
Okay.
end-to-end experience of the tenants and the landlords by implementing tech processes and understanding the human behavior, which is very important, the psychological aspect of it. Uh, Whereas in property wise, so we are on a mission to enable the customers to make wise decisions related to real estate investments. Uh, while Rentersati covers the property management and rental portfolio and the ancillary services like rent agreements and maintenance repair, etc., the property wise portfolio is going to focus on selling, buying and selling. It's going
Hmm.
to focus on uh, renovation and interiors. All the high value ticket items are going to fall into property wise. And there are two interesting areas that we have done some transactions in already, which is managed services for the housing society, which will again fall in the property wise portfolio.
Hmm.
And the other one is, specialized sell for selling the bank auction properties. So
Specialized seller
after
for selling bank auction properties. Ah, I see.
bank
Nice.
auction, after specifically after pandemic, you will see a lot of people defaulting on their mortgage, and then a lot of
Hmm.
properties going into
I see.
auctions. So that's a very interesting area. We are working on that with
I-
some banks
Is that a
already.
is that a big opportunity? How does it, maybe shed some light? How do you come to know that banks have some of the non-performing assets that they need to sell?
Yeah, see, I always knew that bank have some asset, but it's about how do you get notified if a bank is selling a property.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
So during pandemic, I'm a avid newspaper reader. So
Right.
during pandemic, what I noticed is newspaper used to be filled with these auctions ads from the banks, and that's where I realized. I mean, I've never seen such auctions and newspaper filled with so many auctions. And now
Hmm.
suddenly, what happened? That's where the thought triggered, and I started, scanning through the newspapers, talking to the bankers, and then started visiting the property and see, is there a scope here? And then recently, last month, we bought a property in auction to one of the investors. So we
Okay, so
got
you
him property through auction.
but you come to know about these auctions on newspaper. You do not collaborate directly with the banks or something.
We are doing that.
Okay.
So we have already initiated communication with some banks,
Okay.
and we are in the process of doing that. Eventually, we would want to be affiliated with the banks directly as
Hmm.
their authorized panel vendor, whatever they call it. Uh, but yeah, there is a huge potential here that we see.
So what is your role there? You are facilitating transaction of an auction, and you will, because you are an intermediate. you will make a commission based on the transaction.
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely will make a commission both from the bank side as well as the buyer
Buyer side.
side, investor
Okay.
side. But other than the facilitating the process, facilitating the transaction, the key aspect which lies here is to valuate the property, to make sure that this is the right property, and property is free from any litigation and free from any defects and paperwork, because we have seen a lot of cases wherein if you get deep into the documentation of the property, so that may not fit your benchmark, and we have set our standards and benchmark in such a way that trust, transparency, and honesty, that comes first. I mean, we are not after selling any other property to anyone. Like in
Mm.
any portal, any player that you see, they will sell property for all the developers.
Mm.
I mean, there is no criteria wherein someone will come and say, "Hey, we will not list your property because this property does not meets our required benchmark."
So this
I
is a very
mean,
good
if
point.
hmm,
You are highlighting a very important point. In fact, I have my next guest whose only job, whose only business is to perform due diligence for properties. Okay, that is the only business that they do.
yeah, exactly. The term is due diligence. Yeah,
Yes.
you have to have that due diligence in place.
So they are from South Africa, two very senior real estate professionals who have built
Hmm.
this business. I am interviewing them on Monday. So
Great.
what you are saying is, people are non-discriminating and they are offering everything to everybody.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if you are also taking care of due diligence, then your reputation goes up, because then people trust you for your quality, for your getting all the properties that are actually verified and good, isn't it?
yeah, for sure, absolutely, yeah. And that's where you can create a sustainable and a solid business foundation. Otherwise, you may not be successful. I mean, you may last only survive for 4 or 5 years, and then because real estate, again, it's the human psychology also needs to be understood here. I
Hmm.
mean, all these concepts of instant buying the property, you
I
see a
buying.
property, take a virtual I buying, you see a property on the, you take a virtual tour, and then as you, by click of a button, you put that property into a shopping cart and buy it. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have my own doubts whether this model will be successful or not.
Hmm.
And real estate as an investment in residential is losing its shine. I mean, now that investors who have invested 4 or 5 years back, and specifically in Pune, if you see, I mean, it's like rapid urbanization, rapid development started somewhere after 2002,
Hmm.
2003. So it's like 20 years in that. So people who invested before 2012, I mean, they got good returns. But people who have invested after 2012, I mean, they are at loss. And we are seeing that it becomes difficult to sell the property. I mean,
Hmm.
people are booking losses when they want to sell the property. So it's not that attractive because investors are not getting returns. And for
Hmm.
developers, I'm sure it's challenging times ahead. That
Hmm.
developers will also struggle to sell their inventory.
So buy and sell, there is challenge, because a lot has to be with the market dynamics. Okay, but rentals, that is why being on the rental side is still more safer as a business, because people will still need shelter. Okay, people might stop buying apartments, but people will definitely need shelter.
Yeah,
So rentals are.
definitely. Yeah, exactly. And there are different skill sets that are required in renting versus buy selling. So you need to have different skill sets within the team to
Hmm.
be a realtor who can sell a property versus who can. A property manager has got different skills altogether. So it's
Hmm.
not, property manager's job is not an easy job. So there is
Hmm.
a realtor who is selling the real estate cannot be a good property manager. A
Hmm.
property manager may not be a good realtor.
Hmm.
So there is a difference here. And gone are those days wherein it was considered to be a social status. If you own a home or a car,
Hmm.
you will have that social status. But now gone are those days. I mean, a lot of high income group, middle income group, they are living in rental. Even I am living in rental property.
Hmm.
Uh, because being a renter sati, if I myself don't live in rental property, I will not get that experience. So and I think I'll live continue living in a rental property.
That's a very
Because
good point you made.
mm,
Is this how you see increasingly changing mindset, that people are more comfortable than traditional mindset that usually people look down upon anybody who lives in rental?
right. That the scene is changing, the scenario is changing, and
Mm,
slowly it will evolve. Wherein, because of the, especially pandemic has changed the equation as well, because
mm,
people have started working from home, and as a professional, you don't know if after 2 years, uh, which company would you join, and if you end up going overseas or if you
mm,
end up shifting the cities. I mean,
mm,
earlier in the old times, you one used to be in their own hometown or home
mm.
city,
Yeah,
but now, I mean, it's so much of influx.
and and
So yeah,
and
rental.
and it is also said that mostly in India, around 70% of your wealth is in properties. So even if people change their mindset on not owning it, not living on their own property, they would still buy properties for as an investment for better
Yeah,
rentals and stuff like that, isn't it? So
yeah.
they could be opting to live on rent by choice, but they would still buy property in the hope that the value of the property would go up, and they're also getting good rentals. So
Right.
that's why
Yeah, and real
rental.
estate is a productive asset. I mean,
Mm,
it also generates the cash flow as well as appreciation versus
mm.
gold, which is a non-productive asset.
and
Uh,
and world's oldest subscription service. You get monthly subscription for for your apartment, right?
right.
Uh, Good.
Yeah.
Mike, so what's your future roadmap looking like? So other than this, so you're actually offering a broad set of services, but are you like, this is how you want to do, or you want to narrow down or focus on one, go deep or broad? How what's your plan?
So I think length and breadth we have almost done. So we now understand the use cases, we now understand the customer behavior and all those things, like from co-living to property management to rentals to selling to bank auctions to managing a cooperative housing society.
Yes. So that's what
So
I was
all these
wondering.
things we have done. Yeah,
Oh,
all these things we have done. Now the idea is to focus on growing RenterSathi,
mm,
and then it depends on the funding that we seek and the strategy we go with. So we may go all in once, because there is a great potential of cross selling here,
cross
and
selling.
all
Yeah.
these services are interrelated.
Interrelated. Yeah.
All these services are interrelated,
So
and
it is.
there are case studies in the market. Even experts have their opinion, and for example, I'll give you an example of India, which is Square Yards. So
Mm,
Square Yards as a company is going full stack. So they are
mm,
saying that we'll do legal also, we'll do rent agreement also, we'll do property
mm,
management, rentals,
mm,
we'll do loans also. So they
mm.
are doing everything and anything.
Even
So
no
yeah, I
no
mean,
no broker is also doing everything.
yeah, but no broker, I think it's more of a listing platform. But whereas
No, but
Square Yards,
they're also
okay,
offering property
maybe,
management. They're also offering moving movers and packers. They said
right.
that they want to become the Amazon for all rentals.
Right,
Uh,
but they are not delivering services by themselves. They are just a listing portal. I mean, the movers and packers services that is being delivered is delivered by a local partner. So they onboard the vendors, but they are
uh-huh.
not doing it themselves. So it's just a digital platform.
Okay, okay. So that is their model, but it is under the brand of no broker, no? Because they might have vendors, but it's a no broker service. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, they are branding it with no broker, because customer will also get
Yeah.
that confidence that is not dealing with the local movers and packers. They are going via no broker. There is a customer care channel, etc. If there is any issue, they can report to no broker. But ultimately, they are making a commission from the vendor, and they are
Uh,
listing vendor on their portal. Similarly, Atta and all those MyGate, all those society management apps are doing. So they are a market. They are creating a marketplace, wherein they are listing the properties, they are listing the services, right from laundry services to pest control to rent management to booking a cab to filing your tax returns. I mean, every service that is needed by a resident or a person. So they're categorizing all the services and displaying it on their app.
so help me understand. Like with so many players, is the renter or the tenant not getting confused where to go? Because ideally for his peace of mind, he would rather go to one person, one vendor. If you are saying my gate offers everything, um, so what I'm saying is, with so many plethora of options, where do you see a new entrant getting in and still capturing the mind space of a tenant? Because if a tenant is living in a society, he would rather go to some of this adda and my gate because they are promising everything, no?
Hmm. Right. So I think, yeah, that's a mindset. I mean, generally, if you are using one app, you would not want to have two, three different apps on your mobile phone. And
Right.
if you think Adda is offering the marketplace, so yeah, I mean, people go there, and in every category for every services, they list multiple vendors. So one can have a choice of vendors and their rate card, and then they can, talk to them and finalize from those four vendors. And
Does it do they also offer repair and maintenance of properties?
yeah, yeah, I think these marketplaces, they are offering everything and anything from laundry to, as I said, to filing your tax returns to painting services. I can see very prominent.
So
And
how will you so how will you stand out with this competition? Like if you do property management, and then in that society there is already Adda and MyGate who are doing all kinds of property management services, how will you stand out? What will be your unique value proposition that people will stick want to would still want to stick with you?
now, see, property management is a different concept altogether, wherein or versus if you want to fix a tap, running tap.
Mm.
So I mean, you may call any plumber who will come and do the job, but
Hmm.
property management is a different thing altogether. So we are anyway listed on Adda as well as
Okay.
their vendor. But yeah, so the uniqueness that we offer is, I think, it's the consistency and the quality and the transparency. If we continue to deliver that, I'm sure that will be a unique point that will help us succeed. uh, because this property management stuff is very operations intensive. It's not an
Mm.
easy task. I mean,
Mm.
managing one's own apartment becomes a headache, wherein you have
Mm.
to take care of, oh, his property tax has been paid, electricity bill has been paid, or you have to pay, society maintenance has to be is paid. This is not working, that is not working. And imagine, managing one property, your self property becomes difficult at time, and you are saying that you are managing so many properties altogether. So it's very operation intensive, and the skill set required for a property management is very different. There's a lot of patience and listening capabilities and communication skills that are needed in order to be successful in this job.
So Adda and MyGate, do they also list property managers in their
So
marketplace?
they do have a category. They have made a category, property management services vendors. So there are a couple of vendors that I've seen, those who have listed on Adda.
Hmm.
We have not listed on Atta because the I think it's been more than a year. We checked with them, and they were asking for high fee in order to be listed. So they do kind of a wallet concept, wherein you put 10-20K in their wallet, and then based on the leads, for every lead they will make keep on making deductions.
Oh, nice. So then, how do you market yourself? How do you grow? So if not on the marketplace.
So as of now, it's like word of mouth and
Hmm.
through networking. I mean, mostly it's the customers are NRIs,
Hmm.
and so we have customers from I think almost all the countries in the world, wherever IT is prominent
Hmm.
for Indians. So yeah, it's word of mouth that goes in. Hey, I'm RentersaATHI is managing my property, so why don't you contact them, and it's all hassle free, etc. So word of mouth and social media marketing and offline marketing also we do.
Got it. Okay. I have a Because of your experience, I just want to know: Have you so while you were doing co-living for a building, have you ever tried to explore student housing for students who are maybe their demands of services might not be as high? That tolerance level might not be as high. Have you explored that space?
We thought of doing that, but again, pandemic came in, and we could not explore that. But you are absolutely right in saying that we did have noticed the behavior, because there were some students living in our property. So it was
Okay.
not all IT professionals. So there were a mix of students as well who were staying. And
Got it.
so yeah, that's a different customer segment to deal with. And it's interesting, because there is a difference here. If you are operating a student hostel, so you get a commitment for at least a year, because
Hmm.
they will at least study for 2 years, 3 years, and
Right.
then you have a long-term commitment from the students and then the service level also, they will not expect it to be very high.
Got
uh,
it.
so there is a big difference here.
Got it. So today, how many properties are you managing, by the way?
So it's 100 plus properties
Hmm.
that we are managing, that are in our full control in property management and rentals.
Okay.
And
And
other than that, we keep on doing one-off transactions as and when it comes.
buy and sell, you mean transactions?
Yeah, buy and sell, or other ancillary services like rent agreement as a service. We have now offered it at pan India level.
Hmm.
So because Maharashtra is the only state in India which has made the rent agreement process all online.
Okay.
Uh, it's the only state wherein it's a Aadhaar based authentication
Mhm.
that you do on a biometric device, and
Mhm.
so that is the service in Maharashtra, and rest of the states they don't follow this as of now.
Okay.
But for them, we are making digital agreements using blockchain as a technology.
Got it. So help us understand. You said this is an operational heavy business. 100 plus apartments is a big task. What is the tech role on this? How do you use tech to use this? Like, are you using some of the existing tech providers who help you with property management, or could you shed some light there?
Yeah, so me being from IT background, so I explored. I took pandemic as the time to explore tech also. Uh, so we are using a SaaS product, and there are many SaaS products in the market which will offer you agility, so much of agility, and that you can build your platform there. So it's a low code, no code SaaS products that we are using. So yeah, we have a CRM in place, and it's not only now that we have a CRM. So we are using CRM for almost 3 years now. Even when we started with 10, 20 properties, so we laid the foundation that everything has to be systematic and organized. So, and we have all the integrations from, we have a IVR, integrated voice response, integrated to our CRM. We have social media channels to integrate it to our CRM. We have some level of automation and workflows that have been done. We have website hosted on the same platform. So now we are, as we speak, we are working on creating an app on the same platform. So I'm very much a fan of SaaS products in the market nowadays, which offers you complete flexibility.
So when you said the low code, no code, you are still getting it from a vendor, or you created the
No,
stack?
no. So we are using a product, ready-made product from the market for vendor. Instead of creating our own tech stack, I mean that's what I thought. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, I understand. Yeah, at least for 100
or
plus.
or instead of using someone else's product, like the house monk, we took
Hmm.
their quotation also
Hmm.
long back, but that was expensive for
That
us in
was
the
it.
Indian market. So maybe in
Got
other markets it may work, but for Indian market it was expensive.
because they have a standard price all over the globe, no? So they don't reduce it
uh,
for it.
okay, I think so.
So
That's why I think we thought it was expensive. The
yeah,
product was good,
yeah,
but it was expensive. That's where we thought we'll customize the product on our own.
got it. Okay, excellent. And then let's look at before before your path ahead. I wanted to understand. I've not had this conversation before because I wanted to understand how does the real estate agent work in India? Okay, how do they function? Are the real estate agents certified? Do they have bodies, real estate bodies, every city, every state? How do they make money and stuff like that? Could you shed some light on the real estate agent market in India?
Right. So real estate agents, I mean, in every locality you will find a state agent, and real estate, as I said, is such a localized game that in every pockets, in every locality, you will have real estate agents, brokers, etc. So, uh, so uh, government of India, I mean, last 3 years we have seen under the leadership of Shri Modi ji, government of India, they have introduced various land reforms acts, and they have also introduced Model Tenancy Act. But RERA is something that has been very good, which came into existence, I think 2016. RERA came into existence.
Mm.
So that is kind of putting the guidelines and regulations in place to control the market, and every agent by law has to have a RERA license uh, to 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 do the business of real estate selling.
Mm.
Similarly, developers needs to have that RERA license for any projects they are building on. So similarly, agents also need to have a RERA license to
What
operate.
is what is
So
what is the rate? What do you mean by RERA license?
the license from the Real Estate Regulatory Authority. So
Ah,
RERA, I mean, for in Maharashtra we call it Maharera. Uh,
okay.
in Karnataka you'll say Karnataka RERA. So every state has their own RERA under that broad framework of RERA Act. All the states have their own bodies, uh, regulatory bodies.
So you
And
need to.
recently in news, yeah, sorry, recently in news, I also read that now Maharashtra is going to conduct an exam, and every agent has to clear that exam, written exam, in order to be an agent.
Okay. Why is this required? By the way, what is the challenge that it is trying to solve? The governing body like RERA.
It's just trying to regularize and organize the market, because there are many unorganized players who work as an agent currently. I mean, every other shopkeeper, panwala, local shops will be like a real estate agent, who will have the visibility and information about which properties are selling, which properties are available as of now.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's a big network, localized network, because it's a high ticket item we are talking about. Usually
Mm.
agents will charge anywhere between 1 to 2% on the transaction value,
Mhm.
from the buyer as well as seller. So I mean,
So
there is
what
a
is
high
how do they operate? How do they operate? What is the value they are bringing? They are what do they do? Like say for example, today we have the portals. The portals are listing all the properties, and then there are consumers who go directly to the portals. Are these properties actually being managed by the agents on the back end and not by the developers? Is that how it is?
No, these properties are not managed, but but I think when it comes to selling, people prefer going via an agent, because it's a in case of rentals, renters may want to directly contact a landlord
Yeah.
to avoid brokerage or
Fee. Yeah.
any fee that has to be paid. But when it comes to selling, mostly people will go via broker because it's a high value transaction and they don't want anything wrong to happen, and they want someone in the middle whom they can trust, and because there is a paperwork also involved, right? So a lot of paperwork involved, and a lot of knowledge that may be required in order to make that decision. So agents then act as a intermediary or a facilitator in order to
But
answer
what is
their
the
queries.
but what is the value they're adding? Are they giving them additional information that is not there in the portal?
Yes, information is definitely one thing which a local agent may know, which the portals may not know. Uh, so it's an interesting thing. One, there is a company in USA, Localize, and I think I was reading about them. I don't know what they are doing now, but what they were trying to do is they were trying to provide an extra data layer, so that they can remove brokers or agents from the game, and then directly go online. So what they essentially were doing is they were saying that we will have each and every possible information about a property on our portal. And they
Hmm.
say every property is unique in terms of they will also create a data layer wherein it will say that, this apartment gets 5 hours of sunlight in a day. This
Hmm.
apartment only gets 1 hour sunlight in a day. And so these are the kind of information which are not there on the portals,
Hmm.
which only an agent can explain. And agents also have limits. I mean, they also wouldn't know many things about the property. Only once you live in the property, like for example the sunlight example, I mean, people do ask these questions: or how much sunlight do I get? I mean, is there anything in future that will come up in front of my balcony and will obstruct my view?
Hmm.
uh, so these are the things, I mean.
Okay, because if
And
if
that,
if they are charging 1 to 2%, this 1 to 2%, if they're charging to the seller, then either the value they're bringing is they're buying the right buyer. Number one, okay, this is the value. The second one is getting them a good price. Okay, that is the second value. I think these are the two primary value they are bringing. No,
yeah, I mean, getting a good buyer also doesn't mean anything to a seller because he's only interested about money. I mean, you get a
exactly. What
good
is a good
value, and
buyer? Good price.
whosoever is buying, I don't care.
Yeah, so
So,
it's
so
the
it's the
price.
price. Yeah, it's the price. It's the price as well as it's the ease because I think it may take on an average at least 10 to 15 visits for a property to sell. Uh,
Okay.
so the number of visits in some properties we have seen, 50 to more than 50, and some properties we have seen 100 visits happening, and then property still doesn't sell,
So
and then the
there's a term
landlords.
for it. There's a
Uh,
term for it. It's called days on market. Okay, if a property
uh,
is on a portal and the days on market is long, that means it is listed in property portal for 2 years. That means it's a bad property because it is not getting sold. Okay, so days on
yeah,
market.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then the investors or the seller, they need agents because they can't go and show property to hundreds of visitors every
Mhm.
weekend, every now and then.
Right.
So that effort also goes in. It's
Mhm.
not about dealing in order to. Some properties will go in 2 or 3 visits, which is a hot
Yes.
property that will go in 2 3 visits. Some properties will take time, so that's where agent role comes in. So
Okay.
they'll go 100 times, they will go 50 times to show the
Mhm.
property to someone
because
until it
the
is sold.
the commission is high, so they can, that is the
And
investment they're willing to make.
yeah,
But
and once, yeah, sorry, yeah, yeah. And
and
once
yeah.
the deal is done, then the paperwork involved, you have to visit the local registrar,
Mm.
and then there are some paperwork that is required. So agents are very much conversant with that paperwork,
Language. Okay.
which they can facilitate. Yeah.
And that is the value they're adding, so they are taking all the hard work, a burden, showing multiple visits, doing the paperwork, which the landlord, the owner of the property, might not have the bandwidth. Okay, so he gives the
Yeah,
headache to a real estate agent, and then he filters the serious buyer and then brings the filtered buyers to them. Okay.
right. And
And
providing local knowledge about the society, about the neighborhood, etc.
but
Because
is
there
the
are a lot of questions buyer asked. There are a lot of questions buyer will ask. What about the
Yes,
water supply? What about this? What about that? So
so he will offer that. Is there a scientific way to valuation of properties in India, or how does the valuation of a property decided? Because I will tell you, in Europe,
mhm.
in markets, there are AVM providers, okay, who do valuations
Valuation.
after they put all the characteristics of the property. Okay, the address first of all, when was the what is the built year of the building, apartment. Okay, then there is socioeconomics, then there is amenities, neighborhood data. All that is, there are players who create automatic valuation models and they give you a valuation of a property. In India, are there AVM providers already there, or this price of a property is very much manual?
In my knowledge, I haven't heard of any such AVMs, but I think it's all manual and it's mostly driven by a few factors like there are government ready reckoner rates for
Government,
any area.
government
Ready
ready what?
reckoner,
Rate?
government ready reckoner rates. So a ready reckoner rate for a property or a locality will be the price on which buyer or seller has to pay stamp duty. For example, a ready reckoner rate of a property is say 50 lakhs, and the transaction is happening at 40 lakhs. But because the ready reckoner is 50, so you will have to pay the stamp duty on 50 lakhs.
Okay.
So that is one kind of a kind of that can give you a judgment.
Hmm.
Otherwise, people look at the portals, and then it's market driven. Okay,
Okay.
they will ask their neighbors, etc., or how much you sold your property for, and then they will arrive at the uh, point.
Okay, so
Valuation.
so this is also that is being solved here. It's a very mature market in Europe. There are software players who are data players. Okay, so they have all the properties, whether or not they're ready to be sold or not, because the data is very, very transparent here. So they create this platform, and then they give you comparables. If you are willing to sell a property, they can you go to
Hmm.
comparables, and then you can filter all the properties in that neighborhood within that postal code, or you can give distance, say 10 kilometers from here or 5 kilometers in this radius, all the properties that are similar to this property in the number of rooms built here, and then you get a
Wow.
listing of all that,
Hmm.
and then you can compare yourself if your pricing is lower than them or higher than them. So it is called comparables. Very, very, which you
Right.
said that manually you go and ask your neighborhood how much is did your. So this is being solved in technology as well.
Right,
So
great,
that
great. And
that
I
is
think
not
there
yet
are
done.
companies in India which
Hmm.
are trying to, build a platform,
Hmm.
data, giving access to the data for the customers. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to find the actual transaction values in the
Hmm.
past 1 years, 2 years, 3 years, because this is a public data. Ultimately, this is a public data which is there
but
on the
but who
government
is
websites.
oh, so the government is maintaining all the transaction data in
I
India.
mean, not all the states in India, but Maharashtra state is very much, kind of digitalizing on a digitalizing move, and they have digitalized, I think, significant number of land records, etc., transactions. So there are portals, there are websites, but it's not that stable. But all these are public data which government has to display. For example, if you search by a survey number or a gut number, you call it Maharashtra, so you'll be able to see all the properties in that area, and then you will also be able to see the transactions that have been done in those areas. So there are some
Transac-
startups,
Transactions of properties or transactions of the land.
transactions of the properties as well as lands also you will see transactions of the properties, you will see the actual data, and that's the actual data, right? So that will give you the true benchmark.
Because when you do the transaction, you have to go to the local tehsildar and you have to
Yeah, yeah, you have to have the document registered and you have to
uh,
pay the stamp duty.
stamp duty. So that
uh,
is how they capture the data. The government is capturing data.
Yeah, government already has the data. So it
Okay,
may
okay,
be in
okay.
the records, physical registered, but now I think with digitalization, almost every state will have their system digitalized. But it's just a matter of publishing that data and giving access to the citizens
Hmm.
to see that data.
So
But eventually that will happen. But there are many companies that I see. I think not many companies. Sorry, there are a handful of companies who are trying to solve this problem by gathering the data from these government platforms and then
okay,
rendering it to the customers.
okay. So creating some dashboard, some
If,
analysis, some analytics, and
yeah,
stuff.
even sometimes we also do that manually. If we want
Uh-huh.
to arrive at a valuation of a property, we'll go and check the government portals, actual transactions that have happened in the past.
Got it. So this is about RERA. I know it's already 1.5 hours.
No
Could we
problem.
end with Model Tenancy Act and then end this conversation?
Yeah, sure. So Model Tenancy Act came in 2021,
Hmm.
and so this is an interesting act wherein government is trying to regularize and balance the uh, what do you say, between landlord and rentals. They're they're trying to balance the protecting the rights and balancing what is for landlords and tenants. So it's a three-tier quasi judiciary education body wherein they also want to lessen the burden of the civil courts, and they have created a rent authority, a rent court, and a rent tribunal. So
Hmm.
three-tier quasi-judicial dispute adjudication they call it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So which is kind of standardizing the amount of deposit one can take from a tenant, which is
Ah.
capped at 2 months, 2 months of the monthly rent. Uh,
Oh,
because in Bangalore, for example, if you see the
10 months.
deposits are as high as 10 months or 12 months.
Yes.
So that Model Tenancy Act is kind of standardizing it uh,
Nice.
and capping it. And there are many states in India, many areas in India wherein landlord are hesitant to rent out their property, because if a tenant starts living in, tenant may not vacate the property.
Mm.
And if you can't forcefully evict a tenant,
Got it.
and you can't either approach the police also, so it
Mm.
becomes a civil matter wherein you will have to go to court to in order to evict the property. So
Mm.
these were the challenges which landlords face. So this act also addresses these challenges by creating this three-tier bodies. Uh, um, but I think this is a model act which has been recommended to all the states,
Got
but
it.
states are yet to implement. I think there are 2 3 states which have already started, applying these guidelines. But
Right.
I think it's a long way to go, and there are some interesting points also to uh, challenge this act, because what this act says, you have to upload all the rent agreements into a portal, so that
Mm.
may breach the privacy
Mm.
of the two parties getting into a contract.
Got it.
And then this act also prescribes that you do the Aadhaar based authentication
Right.
when you sign the agreement, which is already done in Maharashtra. But
Right.
that contradicts a Supreme Court judgment given in Puttaswamy case, wherein Aadhaar is to be used only for government subsidies and all those stuff. You can't use Aadhaar everywhere.
Mm.
So there are, and it does not specify the time limit by when a case will be resolved if it goes into the tribunal. So
Got
there
it.
are some open points to that. It's an
Mm.
interesting topic, but I'm
Mm.
sure maybe governments will again revise that, and when states actually start implementing that, then
Mm.
only they will actually see the challenges on the ground. But in a way, I would say it's very good, very
Good
positive
start. Got
for
it.
both the landlords and tenants, that government is trying to balance them and protecting rights for each of the parties.
And for the property managers also, because that also makes the things easy for them. Okay.
Yeah, and for property managers also, that act does prescribes a certain standard and responsibility on the property manager.
Ah, okay.
So
So they have acknowledged the presence of property managers, and they have some,
yeah,
okay, so
absolutely.
some
So they
regulations for
acknowledge the
them.
presence. Yeah, and even when we spoke about RERA, I said, RERA also, you need to have a RERA agent license in order to deal in real estate. And then recently, Maharashtra government is also going to conduct some exams. I'm not sure it was for Mumbai area only, or it was for all of Maharashtra. But
Nice.
agents will soon have to go through an exam, clear an exam in order to be a licensed real estate agent.
Like Western countries. Okay, and
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
it is good, no, because if they are licensed, they have more credibility in the market, and people will get more business. So
Yeah.
it's good. Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of a very very fascinating conversation with Abhishek. As I said, Abhishek has learned the ropes of the business the hard way. He has experimented and iterated on a lot of business ideas in rental estate, and that's why thank you, Abhishek. Your experience comes through when you speak, and all the best for RentersaATHI and Propertywise. And I would be keeping a close eye on your business, and I hope you raise money, and I hope you grow. So that's all there is from my
Sure.
side.
Yeah, thanks a
Yeah.
lot, Ravi, and I appreciate you taking this initiative of launching a PropBuzz channel, and also covering India. I mean, you are trying to integrate all the parts of the connecting the all the parts of the world, different areas.
Yes.
So that's very interesting, and I used to wonder, because I've been listening to the podcast and property management show very much prevalent in USA and
Right.
Australia market. But
Right.
the moment I saw your channel coming up and you started interviewing this, that's a very 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 good initiative, Ravi, and thanks for that.
Excellent, Abhishek. See you around. Have a good rest of the day.
All right, thank you, bye bye.
Bye.